Yes, welcome into the camp. Well, practice Saturday morning, final scrimmage that the media gets to see. Jesse, what's Wisconsin's record going to be this year? No, I'm kidding. We're going to get into all of what we saw at practice this morning. It is the final one that was open to the media. It was a scrimmage. Big Ten Network was there, so I'm sure you're going to get plenty of content from them as well. I think it was kind of there were some plays made. I think we can say that there were some plays made from both sides. I think the defense would probably say that they won the day, but that has also kind of been fall camp this year. So we'll get into all of that again. Before we do, Home Field is the official apparel sponsor of the camp, and they are getting their Can't Miss kickoff campaign going earlier this month. It's going to run throughout August and into the opening week of the season, or weeks of the season, I guess. And they have these platinum football boxes that, if you haven't seen, are pretty impressive. Wisconsin is included in that. They've got these 3 new t-shirts, or a couple of new t-shirts and a new hoodie, a hat. They've got this platinum premium pass that will allow you to get access to new releases coming up. So if you're interested, find more information up on homefield.com and use code 24 for 15% off your first purchase. All right, so let's get into this, Jesse. It was, again, the first team defense has had the first team offense's number throughout camp. I think we were talking about it up there. I don't know that in terms of like long drives, whether the first team offense has gotten a touchdown against the first team defense. And these are where it's a little bit difficult to decide, is that because the offense is struggling, or is it because the defense is going to be amazing? I kind of lean towards not having an opinion on either one of those things. But since we are in this business, I'm going to sit here and say that I think the defense is going to be good. And I also think the offense still has some room to grow. But I do think, like, when you are actually going to have to try and tackle some of these guys, and they haven't been doing a ton of tackle stuff, they've been physical. They haven't necessarily taken guys to the ground, especially the first team offense. When it happens, I think you're going to see the offense take off a little bit, because we know they have some physical run. Overall, for you today, did it feel like a defensive day once again?
Well, first of all, I like how you pulled one out of my playbook by hedging and not picking an answer there. So well,
I learned from the best.
Yes,
I learned from the best.
That's what I'm here for.
After 7 years or 8 years, I've caught on.
I thought, especially early, the defense was just all over the place everywhere. It was one of those situations where Daryl Peterson and John Pius in particular were living in the backfield, multiple sacks, and just punishing the offensive line. But I thought that the offense picked things up over the course of this scrimmage sequence. I had Tyler Van Dyke leading 3 touchdown drives. And I would also say this was a day that, once again, to me, sort of reiterated why Van Dyke is the starter. And yes, it can be difficult to make those distinctions when the first team offense is going against the second team defense. Meanwhile, Braden Locke at this point is now sitting there with a second team offense and an offensive line that is made up of, 3 freshmen, 2-3 freshmen, depending on the drive. And the first team defense is playing like that. But Van Dyke didn't turn the ball over. He had some really nice passes, threw 2 touchdown passes, including one in the front left corner of the end zone to Tretch Kekahuna that had a nice celebration. I'm sure we'll get into that one. But, it's just one of those days where you saw some good things on both sides, but you still come away from it not necessarily knowing how this translates. And I think that's something that Luke Fickell talked about after practice as well. For everything they've tried to do, ratcheting up the competition, more live reps, you don't actually know until the season opener against Western Michigan, which is 13 days out. And this was really the last opportunity that they had, in his mind, to try and put together a scrimmage like this, because now you're at a stage where you want to make sure that the guys who are banged up can get healthy enough for the opener, and you don't want to potentially lose anybody else.
So you didn't really answer. I mean, that's a good job of saying, the offense. Look, are you disagreeing with the idea that the first team offense has struggled against the first team defense?
No, I'm not.
Right.
A lot of I would also say, especially since the Sunday night in Platteville, a lot of what we've seen in these situations are first team offense against second team defense. So yeah, the last week, it's been much more of that.
And they've had success against the second team defense. I think that's easy to say. And yes, The Trechka Kahuna catch in the corner of the end zone was, I mean, it was a great throw. The defensive back was right on top of him, and he made a great catch in the end zone, and everyone goes crazy. And we all know he's from Hawaii, and he did his little surfing celebration, just the swimming that gets up and gets. Have you ever surfed, Jesse?
I have not. No.
Have you ever tried to surf?
It would probably end in disaster.
I've done boogie boarding, but I've never tried to actually surf because I know I wouldn't get up. But either way, he got up and he looked pretty good on the board. So yes, he is like, that's the type of stuff that you want to see from Trechka Kahuna. And they had you mentioned another touchdown throw he had. Those are the good plays, and those are more of what I think we're going to see throughout the year. But I think this running game, and again, I asked Luke Fickell afterwards because this is another one. Is it the running game or is it the defense that's struggling? They've had some big holes in the run game, both the first team offense and the second team offense. And guys have been able to get going. We saw Jackson Aker break off a long run. We saw Dylan Jones break off a long run. We saw, Darian Dupree break off to the outside. Not even be challenged on the outside. Like they have had some success in the run game, but it's also like, has the defense not taken a step in the run game? And Luke Fickell said, he kind of doesn't know. Like, these guys are smarter. They know the defense. They know what they are supposed to do. But when it comes down to it, August 30th, can you be physical enough and stop the run and be a very good run stopping team? And I think that, to me, is another question I have about this group, because if Wisconsin's going to run the ball like this offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch, because people are going to have to come up and slow that run game, and they're going to take advantage in the pass game. But last year that wasn't really the case. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't really know which is more accurate, because we know they were not very good stopping the run last year. And have they taken a step up? It's either they've not taken a step up, or the offense has taken a significant step up.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a few things that have emerged. When you are talking about the same topic consistently, about a group that seems to be performing well, to me, at this stage, that means something. So when we're talking about the outside linebackers, largely the top three guys being in the backfield a lot, I think that's going to emerge this season. It's not just, is this first team offensive line really struggling, or the second team offensive line? Well, if you're seeing that from the spring, that matters. And I feel the same way about the running back group, because Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree, they're clearly trying to figure out how we're going to utilize them, because now their carries are all second team carries. It's not really no third team carries for either of those guys. So they can get involved more. You can work your way up to potential first team carries, but when they touch the ball, it's special. Dupree had back-to-back 20-plus yard runs, and you could say it was 25-plus yards, since you never really know who was tackled and when. But one was up the middle. He made a nice play. The other one, I don't know where the defense was. He ran around the left edge, and everyone seemed to crash down looking at something else, and he was just wide open. But it's the other types of situations, too, where he can slip out of a tackle attempt in the backfield, and I've said this before, but turn a loss into even a 2 or 3 yard gain. And Dylan Jones runs with that power and speed, and I know he's drawn some comparisons to Ches Malusi, just if you're looking at guys in the room. Devin Spalding said that. He said he reminded him of Malusi. So there's a lot to like there. But the run defense question, I think that is very much got to be top of mind going into this year, because they've got to be a lot better.
The one running back we didn't mention there and was Tui Walker, and he had a slick little spin move that, again, he's not getting taken to the ground. I don't care who that defender is. He's not going down to the ground in that moment. It was a slick little spin move that would have gotten him off for a big gain. It was against the twos, but it was a nice little move. So every single one of their running backs has, like, the ones that have a chance to play this year, have flashed. And you would expect that, right, though?
Yes, I would. And I thought Walker, he did a couple other things that were really impressive. The one play in particular was a reception he had along the right sideline, and we're assuming it's a catch. Now, we should say, I don't know where the officials were. I think Luke seemed to think he didn't know where the officials were either to have a scrimmage, and there weren't any. So it was just Greg Gillum officiating out there, trying to deal with 22 guys on the field. But Van Dyke was flush from the pocket, rolled to his right, and I don't know whether Walker was inbounds. He caught the ball, though.
Hell of a catch.
That seemed to be enough for it to be considered a completion. And he polished off the drive with a 3-yard touchdown run. So yes, he's been very good. And you really could say that about each of the top 6 running backs, that all of them have had their moments where you can understand why they could be used in a game situation this season.
Yes, I would agree with that. Do we want to talk about the quarterbacks? I mean, you mentioned Tyler Van Dyke didn't turn the ball over today. That was not the case for the other two. The defense, bit of a ball hawking defense today, and one that, they've had interceptions here and there, but today kind of felt like the first day of practice to go all over again, at least with the second and third team group. Braden Locke threw a couple of interceptions, one off his back foot, probably a poor choice that Austin Brown picked off. And what was the other one? Was that Lofi, Max Lofi? Again, yeah. Here's the thing. We have to explain this. They don't always call the sack down. Sometimes they'll let them continue on with the play. And so would it have been an interception in real life? Probably not, because he would have gotten sacked. But in this sense, he still threw the ball, and it was intercepted. Max Lofi had one too. And then Mabry Mettauer was picked off a couple of times, including one by Emilio Agard that he took back for what would have been a touchdown. So did Xavier Lucas also have one? Is that no, not. See, there are some bad information being spread up among the media members up there because we try and keep an eye on everything, right? It's just, it does not always come together as much as I think we'd like it to.
I don't have it in my notes. That doesn't mean I
never saw it.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, so there were a couple of these instances where there's an interception, but it probably would have been a sack. Mabry had a couple interceptions with a third team group. One, he would have been sacked by Drew Brom and ended up throwing it anyway, and Charlie Jarvis picked it off. But the Emilio Agard one definitely stood out. Mabry tried to throw a quick pass to the right side, and wide receiver didn't see it. Agard definitely saw it and took it back for, I think that play started at the defense's 33-yard line. So too many interceptions, but the good news is they didn't come from Van Dyke, and he's the guy who's going to go into the season leading this offense.
For anybody that's played a ton of college, EA college football, the Emilio Agard one was exactly what happens anytime you try and throw an out or a stop route and it's man, and they jump it and it's gone. Like it's impossible. You can't complete you just can't complete it in EA college football. Either way, just trying to give you an idea. You'll probably see it. Big Ten Network probably has it, or the Badger account probably has it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you see it. But yeah, TBD, or I should say, Braden Locke also did right after that drive where he threw the interception. He led the twos down for a touchdown, found Jackson McGohan on a play action boot to the right side he was wide open. And so there was some good there from the second team offense as well. You mentioned Tyler Van Dyke and some of the throws that potentially that's why he is the starting quarterback. I think one that really stood out for me was a slant to Bryson Green on what was it was a backed up period, right? It was just trying to give themselves some breathing room, backed up at like their own 2-yard line. And it was a slant. The coverage was great. He put the ball low, and Bryson Green went down and dug it out, and it would have been a first down and would have given them some breathing room back from their own goal line. I know we've hit on it a number of times, but those are the type of throws that make him the reason why, in my opinion, one of the reasons why he's the starting quarterback.
At this point, it almost feels like the ones that stand out are the ones that he doesn't make, because he has just progressed in my mind so much since when we first saw him in the spring. There's a throw that comes to mind. They had the ball at the defense's 19-yard line. He had Will Pauling open in the left side of the end zone, and it was just a smidge. I mean, it was that close, but Pauling laid out for it and couldn't quite grab it. You can see how upset Van Dyke was with himself, because he knows that he's at a level where he has to deliver that. So that type of throw almost has begun to stand out more than the ones that he's making, which speaks to the, I think, consistent level that he's playing at right now. I think he's trending in such a good direction that from what we've seen, I feel better about what this offense is capable of this season. But it takes, obviously, everybody around him to have some success.
Yes. And I also think it's keeping guys healthy. Right now, they are not, like, they've had some nicks and cuts and bruises and what was a knee here and an ankle there, I think is what Luke Fickell said. He was specifically asked about Riley Mahlman, and, you know, Riley's been out for the last, I think he got hurt when late in the time in Platteville. And then he was, I think he tried to come back earlier this week, and may have had a setback. Either way, Luke Fickell thought he could have gone a little bit today. Just watching him work, it feels like he may be a little bit further away than that. But if you lose a few guys in certain places, I think the team looks significantly different. Now, last year, they lost running backs, and they didn't have anything to fill. I think they feel much better about the running back spot. Quarterback, they say they feel better about it. And Braden Locke is definitely better than he was last year, so they have to feel better than they did last year. But Tyler Van Dyke can potentially make them different because of some of the things physically that he can do. You know, not just the arm, but the running ability as well. There are a few spots that just got to stay healthy. And I think offensive line, especially on the outside, is one of those spots.
I would wholeheartedly agree. I mean, at this point, I think it's safe to say your top swing tackle, if everybody's healthy, among the reserves, is Barrett Nelson. I think Kevin Haywood is still just a smidge away, even though he's gotten some 1 reps. And I mean, Phil Longo kind of talked about that a little bit earlier this week. Like, if the ideal situation is he's going with the 2s, but sometimes you get thrown in there like a Tucker Ashcraft did last year, and you've got to show how good you can be. But I also wonder what they would do did they slide Joe Brunner out? I mean, is that something that they would ultimately decide to do to try to keep a little bit more continuity or just feel more comfortable there? But definitely, if you look, they've got 3 true freshmen playing with the 2s. And while there's a lot of talent there, in my mind, the guy who's closest to actually playing is Haywood. I'm not sure I would say that the other guys are ready right now, or even close to ready, that's no knock on them. They're true freshmen. They've barely been here.
Look, Joe Huber is the backup center. If Renfro were to go down, he would be the backup center. I know Kerry Kadenko's been with the 2s, but seen Joe Huber also work some of the center spot, and that would move JP Benchall to the starting unit. If the right tackle spot were to be if Barry Nelson wasn't able to play it, I think Joe Huber would be your backup right tackle. And then you move JP Benchall into the right guard. If you don't have Jack Nelson, and maybe I think they may feel better of putting Joe Brunner at left tackle instead of putting Barrett Nelson at left tackle, because we haven't seen him at left tackle very much at all until today. Like, we saw a little bit of it today. I don't know that we saw it a ton at other parts here in fall camp. They don't have necessarily the play ready depth that they did last year when you had a Nolan Rucci and you had a Trey Wettig, and even, being able to throw Dylan Barrett in there as your backup center and Jake Renfro. Like, you had 9 guys that you could realistically put in that game last year. And they certainly, I don't know, at this exact moment on August 17th, have that feel right now.
They obviously brought in a lot of talent in the 5 offensive linemen. They've got 5 more committed in the next class, but you see it takes a lot of time.
There's a reason for it.
Even, Nolan Rucci, right? 5-star guy. It doesn't always come together right away. And he would have been at a point where he could have competed for a starting spot or been the very first guy. That's a swing. But offensive line in particular, I think, is one of those positions that, generally speaking, it could take a little while especially at a place like Wisconsin. So lots of talent there, but yeah, that's one spot where you want to make sure that your starters remain healthy, because it really, I think, can change a lot of things if you've got to go to the bullpen, so to speak.
Speaking of true freshmen, let's go over the defensive backfield and the cornerback spot. And did we see Xavier Lucas with the first team defense today?
We did indeed. He got a handful of reps in place of Nizer Forkurine. I think I'm assuming it's just to give him a look at what it's like being the ones, because that came in a situation that was against the second team offense. So, you could make the case, well, if you're with the 2s, then at least you're matching up against the first team offense. But I think there might be something to be said for breaking the huddle with the 1s and just being on the field with them. Certainly that was notable, even if it's only for a handful of plays. He just continues to ascend.
I believe that was when they were in their they had 6 DBs on the field, right? Like it was him and RJ Delancey and Ricardo Hallman and Max Lofi and Hunter Wool. I think that was when they were in the dollar-ish package that we saw last year. So maybe.
I mean, I think the dude is going to play. I don't think he's going to play over a starter, but that doesn't mean you can't get snaps behind them. And obviously, we're talking about injuries at all these other positions. You just never know. And I think
you don't. And RJ Delancey, before not getting any work in the slot whatsoever, has seen a little time when they go into that package where you have 6 DBs and you have 2 slots, and he is working the slot, something he knows quite well because that's what he did previously during his time. Now, the other freshmen, we got to see a little true freshman on true freshman violence. Kai and Barry Johnson going up and holding on to a pass from Braden Locke right on the sideline, and he got just absolutely crushed by Xavier Lucas. I thought Xavier Lucas could have gone for the ball. Like, if he had gone for the ball, he might have knocked it away. But instead, he went for the big hit and put his helmet on Kai and Barry Johnson's ribs. And but it was a great hit, and it was a great catch. And I think we've talked about this a number of times. I think Kai and Barry Johnson, if it weren't for Will Pauling and Trechka Kahuna, would be playing this year.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. He keeps making plays. He's getting the reps with the 2s, like I said before, because Will and Tretch are 1s. So that has allowed Barry Johnson to move up from getting 13 reps. And he's been a nice safety valve for Locke. You can see what he does. He's generally able to catch the ball if it's in his vicinity. And he's very fast and shifty. And I think the toughness is there too. And I thought that was one of the things that stood out to me, even when I was watching some of his high school stuff, when he'd go to the rivals camps. His ability to outleap bigger DBs on 50-50 balls was something that really got him noticed in the first place. Right. So he's got the package on the field. So, I mean, if something should happen to either of those guys, they've got an option in Barry Johnson.
There's the interesting thing. They are smaller guys. Like they're Trechka Kahuna and Will Pauling are both put together, right? They are not like skinny, but they're smaller guys. And Kai and Barry Johnson is probably a little bit skinnier as well. Is it possible that we could see him this year? I think so. If either of those 2 guys in front of him were to go down. And Will Pauling is a tough mother. You know what I mean? Like he took a bunch of punishment last year. I didn't think there was a chance in hell that he was playing at Minnesota last year. And then he comes out and has a touchdown early in that game. And I don't think he played a ton later on. He was more of a decoy than anything, but he is extremely, extremely tough. There was a incident in spring ball, might have been fall camp, where he went down and I thought he had torn his ACL. I thought he was done. And then he missed like a practice. He's extremely tough, and Tretch is the same way. He's more than willing to go over the middle and take those hits and get up. But sometimes you don't really have a choice. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Kai and Barry Johnson. But Wisconsin is not necessarily done with fall camp. But today, as you mentioned, Jesse, was essentially kind of the last day that they had an opportunity to really get physical and hit each other and full pads on and everything like that. So after how many practices do you see? 12, 13 practices here? Do you have, I know you're going to be doing your takeaways this coming up this week. Is there a big takeaway that you have from what we've seen in fall camp? Because the next time we see them is going to be August 30th against Western Michigan under the lights at Camp Randall.
The takeaway story that I'm going to do will largely be going position by position, just to give people a better understanding of where things stand. But from a big picture perspective, and I think I've said this before, this team feels undoubtedly more talented overall than where they were at last year and ahead of where they were, which obviously is something that Phil Longo talks about with his offense every time we have a chance to speak with him. But those are legitimate advances that I think this team has made. And that has to be encouraging. So when we talk about, well, the outside linebackers are teeing off right now, or the running game looks really strong. Obviously, that means that somebody is losing that battle. But on the whole, I think that this has been a really important camp, but one that has demonstrated the progress that they've made in year 2 under Luke Fickell to this point.
So obviously, we were so gung-ho about what things were going to be last year. We've been a little more reserved, obviously, but do you feel better about a bounce back from what happened, in year 1? Do you feel like things are moving in the right direction based on what we've seen to this point? And again, I know that's difficult to really truly judge.
I would like to say that the ceiling with this team feels higher. I know when we did our season preview, running down what we thought the record would be, I went with 7-5, you went with 8-4, and I should say in our poll at The Athletic of fans, I think it was 1,000 or so, close to it votes, those were the top 2 records that people have going into the season. So it's easy to say, well, if they go 8-4, were they really that much better? But the schedule, I mean, depending on what those wins and losses are, would tell you that they have a chance to be better. I do think, from what I've seen of Tyler Van Dyke, I feel like if he can be the best version of what we've seen, it gives them an opportunity to win 1 or 2 of these games that I think people think the Badgers might lose, including myself. So I think that's the best I can say right now, is the ceiling is higher. They have the potential to be better than what a lot of people expect, but it's up to them to go do it.
Yeah. We'll get deeper into some of the takeaways from fall camp coming up this week. But again, Wisconsin practice is now closed. We will not get to see them in practice again until, I guess it depends, the bowl game, wherever they end up. If it's Detroit, I don't know that we'll be at practice, but if it's in a warm weather climate, definitely will be there. Jesse, we'll be back coming up this week, but thank you very much for all your hard work here during fall camp.
We're just getting started. Talk soon.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from The Athletic. You've been listening to The Camp.